Please be warned. Inspired by a true story deals with crimes that may contain adult themes and violence and is intended for a mature audience.
2014. A former Department of Homeland Security agent partners with Columbian authorities for an undercover sting operation targeting traffickers of children sold into sex slavery. In 2023, Jim Caviezel, Jesus Christ himself, stars as this man, Tim Ballard, in a dramatic reenactment of this very operation, which brought with it millions in box office success and plenty of controversy. Keep an eye on your children, because The Sound of Freedom was indeed inspired by a true story. Welcome to True Crime for Cinephiles. This is inspired by a true story, a podcast devoted to keeping artists honest. After listening, or right now, whichever, you can leave a review on your app of choice or share Inspired by a True Story on your social media outlets. We really do appreciate that. Of course, this is a heavier one, so I know everybody has heard of The Sound of Freedom, most likely seen The Sound of Freedom, so that's going to be an interesting one to talk about. We're going to discuss the overall details of the Operation Triple Take, as well as Tim Ballard and his controversies. Then review the film on its own, how much of that is true and how much was Hollywood magic. I'm Aaron Peterson, an accredited film critic for the Hollywood Outsider podcast and website. And joining me today are my fellow film critics and true crime devotees, John Davenport.
Hey, was that The Sound of Freedom or was that Queen's We Will Rock You?
And you made it weird. And Amanda Sink.
Hello, hello.
Okay, so The Sound of Freedom. I saw this in the theater. You guys did not, right? So what did you think of the movie? And keep in mind, take all that you know about it, just as a film itself, which I feel like not enough people are doing when they watch it. They are just putting their politics into this a lot. And I just want to know, like, as you watch the movie, what do you think overall?
I found the movie to be okay at best, but it does feel very much that it's playing to a certain audience. But the cutting is great. The music is well used, and it's got enough intensity that it works pretty well as a movie.
I don't know that I felt like preached to or that this was really allocated to one particular audience. Like if I were to have taken all of the very public context from the political landscape aside, to me, this would just be a movie, another one around child trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking. Aaron and I have seen a handful of these types of films, especially from like the documentary standpoint over the handful of years that we've been doing. Well, I shouldn't say handfuls for Aaron of years that we've been doing film festivals. So none of this felt like new information to me, nor did it feel like it was a targeted effort for any particular reason. Sure, you know, when you look at like the timing of it and yada, 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 you can take that into context. But the movie itself felt like it was just trying to tell the story and help people understand the significance of what this looks like. Now, the one thing that I'll say is that if you guys think that this is just an overseas problem, you are sorely mistaken, because the U.S. is one of the prime countries for this activity where it originates.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible when you actually look at the real facts. And I felt the same way. I've had more politics injected into conversation about it than I found in the movie at all. The movie felt very much like it's just a thriller. It's a thriller talking about a very complicated and real topic. You know, you get a glimpse of real abductions at the beginning of the movie, which I think is important to note that those are real abductions. Just to give you an idea that this happens every day. It happens when you least expect it, et cetera, et cetera. And the movie is just taking one of those stories and definitely embellishing it to make it an entertaining film. I mean, the whole last act of the movie is completely fictitious. None of that is actually true. I'll spoiler alert the episode a little bit. So when he goes in the jungles of Colombia to rescue the girl, that didn't actually happen. We'll speak to it more as we get into the episode. But it's a movie through and through. And I don't, other than the fact that Jim Caviezel is the lead, and I know he has some personal political leanings, I don't really see a whole lot of reasoning. And Tim Ballard obviously has some connections to the right. He's very religious, and I know he's been situated next to Donald Trump and that sort of thing. But take the movie for what it is, and it's just a movie. It's just a thriller, and I think a very well done one. I enjoyed it. I was moved by it. I don't see anything wrong with telling people trafficking of children is bad.
Yeah, and that is like the biggest thing that I've had with this. So I never watched the movie prior because I was just like, look, I want to stay, which is ironic for me. I want to stay away from like the politics. Like I especially don't want this heavy mix of politics in, I want to call it entertainment, but especially in a topic like this. And so all of the rhetoric surrounding the movie made me like, I'll just watch it when all this kind of dies down and it becomes less of a thing on my mind, because I want to watch the movie for what it is, for the topic that it is. And if anybody has, I guess, like an issue with any side bringing forward the reality around this topic, like you should probably reflect internally and figure out why you have an issue with hearing that. Because to me, it doesn't matter who's bringing it up. We probably should be talking more about this because Absolutely. It doesn't get talked about enough, especially for the gravity of the situation. Like we probably should be having more topics around this and bringing it to light. Now, timing, your political leanings, whatever, the people involved, like that's irrelevant in my opinion if you're just looking at the movie. And I came out the same way, Aaron, that you did, where I liked the movie and I felt like it did a nice job of really painting the picture, but still like dramatizing it for entertainment value. Mm-hmm. But it is the reality. So to me, if you're politicizing the topic itself or the movie itself, that's on you. That's something you should probably think through.
My problem with this movie is that it hero worships a man who doesn't deserve to be hero worshipped.
Well, which we found out after, okay? Allegations came out after.
I knew about his story before the movie came out.
But that's also not necessarily true. It is well documented that he did help save many children's lives.
Like he helped many children's lives. It's a whole long convoluted story.
Why don't we wait until we get to him before we get into that? But
ultimately, the guy is not necessarily a good person, and I don't like the idea of hero worshiping somebody who's not a good person. Now, if you want to sit there and say that his organization did good things, I'm good with that. Come up with a story about our situation or whatever it is. Come up with a story about them, great, but don't hero worship the one guy at the center who's highly problematic.
Allegedly.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we'll probably obviously have to dive into, at what point does all of the good work get bypassed for allegations that still haven't been proven, and the implications of that, because it's all connected to essentially the methodology in which he allegedly went about helping save these kids.
We'll come back.
And so there's like two components to it, and that's a very lengthy discussion beyond just the movie itself.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the case of the movie first, and then we'll talk about John's stress.
It's valid stress, to be fair. It's just, I think a lot of it came out.
That it's not.
My understanding was that a lot of it came out after the movie was released.
Most of it came out afterward, yes.
All right. We're going to wait till we get to him. Never mind. I'm going to shut up until we get to him.
Yeah, shut up. We got to get to stuff. All right. So as of this recording, The Sound of Freedom is streaming on Prime Video, but that is always subject to change. This is the incredible true story of a former government agent named Tim Ballard turned vigilante who embarks on a dangerous mission to rescue hundreds of children from traffickers by setting up an island for pedophiles. Stars Jim Caviezel, Mira Sorvino, and Bill Camp, and is directed by Alejandro Monteverde. I should note, Bill Camp was also in Compliance. If you didn't listen to that episode, that is even somehow just as creepy as this one. No, not as creepy, but it's pretty creepy. Poor Bill Camp. What do you got to do, man? You need to go do a Pixar cartoon or something. New episodes are released every 2 weeks. It can be found wherever you listen to podcasts or at thehollywoodoutsiders.com. You can hear episodes early by supporting the show at patreon.com/thehollywoodoutsiders. Film and true crime fans alike are always debating how true their true crime is. This is another one that contains two focal points, the movie events themselves and the man behind the movie, Tim Ballard. Let's start with the case the film is based on. Before we get into the direct case, I want to mention a couple statistics. Child trafficking statistics in particular. There are 27.6 million trafficked persons globally today, and almost 20% of them are children. Approximately 350,000 children are reported missing every year in the U.S., and of that total, an estimated 100,000 are being trafficked. Child sex trafficking has been reported in every U.S. state. The 2021 Federal Human Trafficking Report stated that 57% of U.S. humans trafficking victims were minors. 57%. Also, going to Amanda's point earlier, the United States is one of the top destinations for human trafficking and is among the largest consumers of child sex. Also, human trafficking is a $150 billion per year business, more than the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, and NHL combined. It has also eclipsed the illegal arms trade, according to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Tim Ballard spent 12 years as a special agent, undercover operator, for the Department of Homeland Security. He was with the CIA for 1 year prior to that. His focus was child crimes, including child trafficking. For the early part of his career, this mostly revolved around end-user and collector cases, meaning persons who collected and or distributed child exploitation material or pornography. The children contained in these seized videos and pictures were just that, children, the average ages between 5 and 7 years old. The laws were modified in 2006 to allow agents to actually venture overseas to make arrests. They could now find, arrest, and prosecute any American citizen for engaging in any sex act with a child, just as they had committed the crime on U.S. soil. Tim Ballard stated that though this opened up investigations to an extent, it could still be a frustrating process because the law didn't stipulate how much time, flexibility, or creativity he would be given when conducting an overseas mission. And even if he found the kids, he would be told to come home if he couldn't find the American citizen who was connected to their exploitation. According to Tim Ballard via the Daily Signal, and it should be noted this can only be verified by Tim Ballard, but Ballard became frustrated in 2012 due to two cases, not just the one as depicted in the film, one in Colombia and the other in Haiti. According to The Atlantic, spokespeople for the CIA and Department of Homeland Security said they could not confirm Ballard's employment record without his written permission, which he did not provide. Ballard said, quote, "I was told, come home on both of them. They were both major cases. A significant hit against human traffickers would have taken place. There I am, thinking, they're asking me to come home once again, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stay, and that means I have to quit my job." Tim Ballard and his wife Catherine had 6 children at the time. The couple have 9 now. The two met at Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. They're both Mormons. Ballard stated, quote, "I called my wife, hoping she'll say, 'Get your butt home. Are you kidding me? Got 6 kids to feed.' And I want her to say that because I was being a coward. But I knew it was the right thing. And she didn't. She didn't read my script. And she said, 'Of course you're going to stay.' And I said, 'Are you kidding me?' And she said, 'I will not let you jeopardize my salvation by not doing this.' And it breaks my heart because not only is she losing our income, but she possibly, there's a very good chance, maybe 50-50, she's going to lose me." October 2013. With funding help from media tycoon Glenn Beck, as well as private donors and organizations, Tim Ballard founds Operation Underground Railroad, also known as OUR. OUR. Operation Triple Take would be their most famous mission. In 2014, Ballard initially begins doing small work for Colombian authorities, which leads to the understanding of several traffickers in the area. Kelly Oana Suarez had been known as Miss Cartagena, and she presented herself as representing a modeling agency. She would lure children into an audition of sorts with the promise of a potential modeling contract. The parents would leave their children for a limited amount of time, and while the parents were absent from the audition, the children would be kidnapped. It was reported on February 24th by ABC News that Kelly Oana Suarez Moya and her mother, Luz Miriam Moya Solano, sued Tim Ballard, his wife Catherine Ballard, the organization Operation Underground Railroad, and the film studio Angel Studios, along with other defendants. The lawsuit stated, the portrayal of Moya in the film is quote-unquote highly offensive and has exposed plaintiff Kelly to hatred, contempt, or ridicule in the public eye. This is the 5th lawsuit against Ballard. We will speak to the other ones later on. They stated that Angel Studios promoted the 2023 film using side-by-side photos on billboards and posters showing Moya and the character from Sound of Freedom named Caviezel, who was openly based on Moya, according to the lawsuit. The lawsuit also said that both the studio and the Our organization represented Moya as quote-unquote nothing short of a monster, as they stated themselves on social media. Angel Studios, in a blog post that is no longer available on the website, claimed Moya quote-unquote exploited her reputation in a poverty-stricken neighborhood to recruit children for sex trafficking. The lawsuit states that Kelly went from being an anonymous face in the crowd to being hated in Colombia. In the film, the character based on Moya is shown to be a wealthy beauty queen with a child modeling agency who is known to traffic her models to the cartel in Cartagena. None of that is true, according to the lawsuit. The lawsuit states Moya never actually won the popularity contest she entered in. She represented her neighborhood in a competition, which was a contest to become an ambassador for her neighborhood. Also, court documents reveal that Moya reportedly never had a modeling agency for children. Plaintiff Kelly was not well known to anyone in Cartagena, outside of her close family and friends, according to the lawsuit. According to this lawsuit, Moya was mistaken for someone else. Moya was arrested and named as a trafficker and spent 18 months in a Cartagena prison waiting trial. While Ballard testified against her in Colombia, Moya was released by habeas corpus and was never officially convicted of any crimes related to the situation, according to the court documents. Furthermore, the meeting between Ballard, a Colombian special agent, and a man named Eduardo, who had agreed to help gather the underage children for the party, occurred on October 7, 2014. The lawsuit states defendant Ballard knew from the very beginning that plaintiff Kelly was not at any of those 3 meetings where Operation Triple Take was planned, yet he has testified she was at the meetings. According to this lawsuit, Ballard gave Eduardo money for the party, and the group decided to post on Facebook to invite young people to the party. Moya states that she was not at that meeting, a fact that was verified by court records. According to this lawsuit continued, and ABC News, October 9th and October 10th there were more meetings and phone calls to discuss this party, and 3 other individuals were involved and said that they could bring children for the party. The lawsuit points out that Moya was not present at the additional planning meetings, nor was she mentioned in the phone calls as verified by court records. According to this lawsuit, Samuel David Martinez worked at the modeling school, where he reportedly met Moya, and where he was planning to recruit children for the party. Martinez told Moya a man from North America, one of Ballard's acquaintances, wanted to have sex with a young black girl, and that she would be paid to go to the party. Moya later attended 2 meetings with Ballard and Eduardo, and the party had reportedly been planned to show that Martinez had girls ready for the party, according to the documents. Contrary to what was shown in Sound of Freedom, the lawsuit says the children and young adults were not kept in shipping containers, nor were they previously victims of sex trafficking. The lawsuit alleges that Moya herself did not invite anyone to the party. She reportedly sat with Martinez at a table with Ballard because she knew Martinez. However, when Ballard gave money to Martinez and Eduardo, but not Moya, officials came in and arrested Moya and the others. That's why it's important to note when we're talking about this case, allegedly is the key word, across the board. And like many of the other lawsuits that we will speak to later, these results are pending. Time of this podcast. for several months, put together a massive sting operation in cooperation with Colombian authorities. While prostitution is legal in Colombia, this does not extend to trafficking nor to children. Each person involved wore an elaborate cover story, such as Tim Ballard's was that he was the best man at a wedding back in the U.S., and he needed several underage prostitutes for a bachelor party. Operation Triple Take was intended to lure not only one or two, but numerous sex traffickers into a single setup so they could rescue as many victims as possible at one time. According to ABC News, Ballard's team featured a ragtag group of volunteers, some off-the-books operatives, and one Navy SEAL, but many just regular civilians. There were 2 CrossFit instructors from Utah, a door-to-door salesman, and even Hollywood actress Laurie Holden, who starred in The Walking Dead. For the Cartagena sting, a multi-million-dollar mansion was rented. Cameras and audio recording devices were planted throughout the property. They needed to achieve firm proof of the traffickers exchanging money for the girls. It was around $200 to $300 for the evening for a child. That's how much it costs to buy a child for a night. The mansion was arranged and orchestrated to be both inviting and relaxing. The setup was that of a birthday party, so the traffickers would not seem out of place, bringing young girls into the home. Once the girls arrived, Holden's job was to keep them occupied by the pool area as Ballard and the officials worked to hook their perpetrators. 25 Colombian authorities stormed the party. The traffickers were set to make around $25,000. 5 suspects were arrested for child trafficking. 54 boys and girls were rescued during this operation. Similar stings occurred in 2 other cities, resulting in the rescue of over 120 children. Now we're going to come back to Tim Ballard and the controversies in a few, but first let's discuss Operation Triple Take.
What an amazing story, isn't it? Just setting this up and the amount of people that it takes to get this going is truly a good thing that happened. You know, that's the thing that always concerns me is what happens to kids, and they did a really good job at making sure the kids were safe during this whole process.
It's still a gruesome story when you consider that this isn't like a one-off situation. Like when you understand the statistics that Aaron went through and you understand how many people were saved through the organization that John referenced earlier, like that's the part that even at the end of all of this, I still feel gross because this is just a small drop in the bucket. And not to make it seem like it's insignificant of what all happened in this story, but when you consider how many other children there are out there that are being trafficked, and that one of our states in America is like the leading hub. When you use the word hub, it feels even grosser. Like that's the part where like at no point do I ever end up feeling okay about anything, even though I know that there's good that comes out of it. It's like I can't get past how many more are out there.
And I think that's the part that probably as a dad, as a person, as a human, whatever, infuriates me the most is that the movie has something to say. It's not, jamming it down your throat or anything else, just presenting the story as it were and telling you, an engaging, entertaining story. But also a lot of it is factual in most respects, at least the first 2/3. And because of the person who shall remain, not mentioned until we get there, because of Tim Ballard's later controversy, it kind of sucked away the conversation to what it should have been about. It's not about just him. It's about all these people that managed to bring all these groups down and save these kids. That's what it should have been about. Like 120 kids were saved. That's what's most important. And I think the organization has claims something around 6,000, something along those lines. Anything that can be done to save a child that's trafficked, to me, it should be the conversation point. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the other stuff isn't worth talking about as well, and we're going to talk about it. But I also just feel like it's sucking all the oxygen away from what the more important issue of this particular film is, it's not about the man, whether he's the star or not. It's about children being trafficked and how we need to address that. And what do we need to do as citizens, as a government, as a world, NATO, whatever it is. I mean, there's obviously a lot that we're not doing that could be done to combat this. And I don't know what that is. I don't claim to know what that is, but I think it's important to know that there's a lot of truth behind this film that is kind of being washed away. And I don't know if that's fair.
That's part of what makes me angry is that there is a lot of truth. And yet something about this movie loses its story because of how they decided to lay out the story. It's such a disappointing miss as far as being able to land a story without any sort of overshadowing of something, a specter of a different type, without any sort of issues. They could have just been able to tell the story so much better if they did not focus it on the one person. And that makes me angry on both sides. It makes me angry on the side of the people who are taking away the story because of what it is of who it is involved, but also on the other side too. It makes me angry at the whole idea of hero worshiping this guy.
No, but there were also people. I mean, I'm going to play fair ball. There were people connecting this to QAnon. They were saying that this, it's disgusting. This whole movie is not true. Blah 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 blah. Just because Glenn Beck was the financier behind it, because they don't like Glenn Beck. We don't like far right, so therefore this is bad. That's how media was presenting it. Long before Ballard became a controversial figure. When the movie came out, Tim Ballard was not the number one issue. It was QAnon connections and Glenn Beck. That's a fact. I followed this story so closely. It was ridiculous. And I'm sorry, that's not fair. That's putting your politics before the topic. And I think that's a problem that we as a country, as a world, have to stop doing. There are some things for sure. Your political leanings might matter. But this is a topic where I don't think it should. I don't care if Jim Caviezel has extreme beliefs. I don't care if Tim Ballard is a complete asshole in real life. The movie is pointing a finger at a topic. It's not... I didn't walk away from that going, wow, Tim Ballard, what a hero. No, I walked away from the movie going, God damn, what aren't we doing to make sure kids are safe? That's what I think most people should be taking from this, instead of making it about their political leanings.
But I think what you're missing is that a lot of people walked out of this movie going, oh my God, Tim Ballard is an amazing human being.
I didn't get that from anybody I talked to about it. It was more about the trafficking situation. Amanda, you just watched it. Did you walk away thinking Tim Ballard is a badass? Or were you more...
So I will say that the movie does, in my opinion, paint him as, because we're focusing on him as like our lead, it does make him appear to be the hero, and he did all of these things, and at the end it's like, Tim did this and da-da-da-da-da, and then their team did this and da-da-da-da-da. And so when you come back and you understand, like if you were to just look up said fella on Google, one of the first things you're going to find are the allegations of his sexual abuse and how it was used allegedly in conjunction with the mission, and allegedly that his wife was also like connected and like a proponent of him doing that. Like, for example, where he would tell them, oh, you're Mormon, you can't drink. So if they have you drink something, just kiss me, spit it in my mouth, and then I'll drink it or whatever.
Well, he's Mormon too, so
I know.
So he's not supposed to be drinking either. The idea.
Maybe that's the rule for Mormon women. I don't know.
No, it's not. It's a.
Oh no!
Mormon.
And then he said he would spit it out. I'm sorry, that's what he said. And then
he would end
up
drinking it all.
But it's also important to note the film was made. It was filmed in 2018. It sat on the shelves because it was part of the Fox buyout, and it was purchased by Disney. And then Disney didn't want it for whatever their reason. So and then it finally came out, became a massive hit. It was a massive hit. But it was filmed 5 years before it came out. So all of the stuff about Ballard came out after that fact. In fact, it came out roughly in 2023 is when a lot of it came out. So when the movie's coming out, it's blowing up. It didn't hurt the movie, but obviously it hurt the man. But I'm just saying, like, you can't fault the movie necessarily because the man turns out to be a douchebag. Half of Hollywood turns out to be douchebags. Allegedly, by the way.
Yeah, that's
allegedly.
true. Yeah.
No, I don't fault the movie because he's a douchebag. I get disappointed in the idea that the message gets lost because he's a douchebag. The movie itself is okay, and the movie itself tells an important story. And I get upset because I know that there's people who are going to walk out of this movie thinking that he is a hero when he's in fact not.
Okay, so we're going to come back to a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, but as a standalone film without any real knowledge of the case, we talked about what you thought of the movie. What'd you think of the performances? I thought Jim Caviezel was very good. I know he goes on Steve Bannon's show and he's a bit of a, what did he just say? You know,
yeah,
when
he's a little bit of a weirdo.
Yeah, but he's a good actor. And I don't care what anyone says. He's a very good actor, and he's very good in this role. I love watching it. Frequency is one of my favorite movies of all time, and he's in that.
Angel Eyes.
I thought he did wonderful as Jesus. I just think he's a very good actor. Whatever his personal beliefs are, they're his beliefs. They don't come to the movie for me. So I very much enjoyed his performance. And honestly, I don't know what kind of person Tim Ballard is in real life, but I know that Jim Caviezel made him cooler than he'll ever be.
I like Jim Caviezel, and I've always liked him in just about everything I've seen him in. Even in his 5 seconds of role in Deja Vu, where he is supposed to be this, well, turns out probably who he really is, which is this guy who's living in the backwoods blowing things up. Even that bit, he was really good in that. So I've always appreciated him. Person of Interest was a fun show to watch, primarily because of him. My one gripe about like movie stuff, like all the villains and somewhat villains had animal names, yeah, or monster names. You had Vampiro, vampire. Okay, great. You had Scorpion and Piranha and all these different Spanish animal names that they were using for their names as opposed to real names. I thought was kind of comical. But aside from that, it was a very well shot movie. I thought the scenes where he's running in Cartagena was pretty cool, especially how they use that to tell part of the story through exposition. So there's a lot of things I did enjoy and appreciate.
To me, I think you have to look at the movie for what the movie is. The movie has not connected or associated with anything else in the outliers. They, didn't bring it to light. They didn't say, specifically, this Tim guy is a hero to America and to the planet Earth or anything. So looking at the movie, it was good. And I liked Jim Caviezel's performance. I thought he was a good pick for this type of thriller. And again, it is very much a thriller of just trying to follow the mission here. And so it does the job that it set out and intended to. The other things, the other factors are separate from the movie itself. And I think everyone has their own opinion on how external factors of like lead actors or the real story behind the movie or whatever it may be influences their ability to digest and be entertained by a movie based on those external factors. For me, because it's not like the movie came out and was trying to paint him necessarily as the hero. However, I did feel like because he's the primary source, he inspired it. And again, though, the movie isn't just about this man. It's about the work that these teams are doing. And I feel like...
And those children. And the children.
And those
what
children.
they're going through.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say next is like, most importantly, this still brings to light a very important topic that doesn't get enough attention to begin with and help people kind of, I don't know, shed the lamb's skin over your eyes or whatever that weird saying is.
I do not know what that is, but
but it's one of those things like for me personally, I can still see this movie as the movie itself because it's inspired by the missions that he was a part of and led and everything. And yes, that does paint this character as being a hero, but it doesn't it didn't have the context and the understanding of the allegations prior. If that were out and surfaced prior to them even making the movie, I would feel very differently. You know what I mean? But they didn't have that. So they're just trying to tell the story.
I bet they would have changed the character's name entirely.
They would have. And they would have been like, hey, this is still something that we should tell the story about, which everybody is going to have their opinion on. But I feel like there's still merit in telling this story, even though there are allegations that it wasn't fully ethical in the way that he went about it.
Right. It'd just be Jim Ballard or something. I also like seeing Mira Sorvino. I haven't seen her pop up in much as of late, so I was happy to see her show up. And Bill Camp is a very good actor. He's kind of got that James Gandolfini edge, where he can be sleazy or very powerful in depending on what he's playing, which Gandolfini was good at. Okay. Did the movie respect the victims and what was true or not true in the film? The character Fuego in the film is a real person who was arrested during Operation Triple Take. Fun fact. Operation Triple Take ended up winning Homeland Security Investigation's Case of the Year in 2015, an operation they called Clear Hope. I didn't know they gave awards for investigation cases, but there you go.
All right. I mean, we still can't get an Oscar for
stunts, but
stunts, but
Homeland Security's handing out awards. That's cool. Tim Ballard did not, in fact, venture alone to rescue a little girl, killing a man in the process. Ballard never killed a man. He did lead a team of doctors into the jungles of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, but traffickers were not located. Gardy does exist, but was never found. Ballard still allegedly wears a bracelet to this day with the name Gardy on it. So that's an interesting fact. I think that was kind of the addition to the movie that probably, I think, hurts the film in a way, because they should have kept the realism, but I realized they wanted to make an exciting thriller, and that made it an exciting thriller to get some kind of payback.
Right.
Some kind of leveling out. Vampiro, who John doesn't like the name of, was real, based on a real person, also known as Batman. Though the real Batman has never been to prison, and he was not involved in the Cartagena operation. In the film, Batman, or Vampiro, tells Tim he changed his life and started helping in the fight against sex trafficking because he slept with a prostitute and then realized it was a 14-year-old girl. The realization that he was adding to the darkness that almost drove him to suicide until he redirected his efforts, that was true, except for the part where it wasn't a 14-year-old girl he slept with. In real life, the woman he slept with was an adult trafficking victim, and he realized that her young daughter was being exploited while she was away, and that was his ultimate motivation.
Oh, more impact cinematically, though, for it to be the actual
take the mom
underage
out of
person.
there. Sure, right.
Absolutely. While trafficking can occur in containers and the footage at the beginning of the film is real, it does rarely occur that way. Typically, it occurs through grooming to manipulate children into a vulnerable location and get their somewhat buy-in through fear and intimidation. Unfortunately, that is a fact.
It's usually somebody you know.
Now, in terms of the movie, we're almost to Tim Ballard, John. So you're almost there.
So settle in.
What would you have done differently about the movie? For me personally, I think what I would do is I would just kind of modify the final act. I feel like that part, while exciting to some degree, was a little bit over the top, and I would have rather stuck to the facts, my opinion.
I would have liked to have seen more of a show of the organization, of the Our organization coming together, and then the Our organization doing what they do, as opposed to Tim Ballard running into the forest doing his thing. You know, that would have been a much better way of telling the story, I think.
Yeah, I think if they would have, because it is understood that he was kind of like the brains behind, this starting and everything. But it was a multifaceted approach, and it was a large sting that involved a lot of people. And so getting more of the names involved of the people who were part of that operation, I think would have been really cool. And it being seen as not necessarily like a one-man show with support of these teams, but rather like, hey, we all have a piece to play. And like, you can still have Jim Caviezel's character be like the main guy that we follow. There's nothing that stops that. But making it be seen more collaboratively, I think would have been more authentic to the story and would have been nice. Just because when you're dealing with something like a topic like this, you don't want to take too many cinematic liberties per se. In my opinion, you want to try to be as authentic as you can. Mm-hmm. And I think that would have been like my biggest thing is I think it would have been cool for them to do that and acknowledge the work that all of these other people put in too.
All right. We're here, people. We've arrived. So let's dive into some of the controversy attached to the Sound of Freedom, Operation Underground Railroad, and Tim Ballard. And please keep in mind, as we talk about court cases and allegations, they are just that, allegations. Nothing has been definitively proven as of the recording of this episode. Important to note. Many media sites purported at the time of Sound of Freedom's release that the film was linked to QAnon, partly due to the subject matter, as a popular QAnon conspiracy theory is that many of the elite are secretly working together to protect each other within their pedophile rings. People have too much time on their hands. And partly due to the extreme religious beliefs of star Jim Caviezel, who has repeated several of the conspiracy's talking points on conservative talk shows and at QAnon-organized events, including that he believes in adrenochroming, the term for the falsehood that traffickers torture children and drain their blood to harvest an elixir of youth. What? I could find no actual proof that these entities are connected other than the speculation, conjecture, and more conspiracy theories. Director Alejandro Monteverde stated, "Anything that goes political divides. When a director makes a movie, there is no contract on what people can say after. What people say after the movie, the director has minus 100% control. And it's a fact that this movie is not based on the QAnon conspiracy." On Jim Caviezel's controversial comments about QAnon, Monteverde said, "I hire people to work on my movie. What they do after is their choice. Do I agree with everything that people do after? Absolutely not." As reported in multiple news sources and even ABC4 in Salt Lake City, Utah, where Ballard at one point seemed poised to run for Mitt Romney's Senate seat, in 2020, the Davis County Attorney's Office, along with the FBI, began criminally investigating Tim Ballard, the Our Organization, Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes, among others, mainly over concerns of the organization's allegedly misleading donors. This included an extensive search into Our, paying thousands of dollars a month to a psychic medium to give them intel for their anti-human trafficking raids. The psychic medium would allegedly contact dead prophets from the Book of Mormon, in particular one named Nephi, for information on where to find missing children. That investigation concluded in March 2023, and no charges were filed. In June 2023, Tim Ballard stepped down as CEO of the Our Organization. This was not formally announced until December 2023, when Operation Underground Railroad stated, and I'm going to read most of their statement. While Tim Ballard was the public face of Our during his tenure as CEO, he directly participated in only a small fraction of Our's operations in recent years. His departure followed an investigation by an independent law firm, and the conclusion that Tim Ballard engaged in unprofessional behavior that violated Our's policies and values. He has been permanently separated from Our. We understand the trauma that often results in an individual who witnesses the effects of trafficking firsthand over a period of years. We hope that he can address this in his own life and get the help he may need. OUR has increased and will continue to increase its commitment to providing a safe, respectful, and harassment-free environment. And we are deeply sorry for any harm or distress that Tim Ballard's actions may have caused to anyone associated with Our. According to Vice News and their sources, Ballard invited women to act as his quote-unquote wife on undercover overseas missions ostensibly aimed at rescuing victims of sex trafficking. He would then, allegedly, coerce these women into sharing a bed or showering together, claiming that it was necessary to fool traffickers. Ballard is said to have sent at least one woman a photo of himself in his underwear, stacked with fake tattoos, and to have asked another how far she was willing to go, in the words of a source, to save children. These sources requested anonymity because they fear retaliation. September 15th, 2023. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints issued a statement, first to Vice News, denouncing claims of the church's connections to Tim Ballard, calling his activities morally unacceptable, and claimed Tim Ballard betrayed his relationship with President M. Russell Ballard. No relation. Once it became clear Tim Ballard had betrayed their friendship through the unauthorized use of President Ballard's name for Tim Ballard's personal advantage and activity, regarded as morally unacceptable, President Ballard withdrew his association. Tim Ballard, in response to these allegations, released this statement on September 18, 2023. He said, and I quote, "Rescuing kids and fighting child trafficking is an ugly and dark business, especially when, as a result of my work for more than 20 years, we continue to expose members of the powerful, well-funded child trafficking cartels. Evil pedophiles will stop at nothing, and they have allies in government, in the media, in big corporations, and even in public institutions. They continue to lie and attempt to destroy my good name and defame my character, and they will never stop. I want everyone to know that I and our vast army of supporters will likewise never stop. We will keep fighting for the vulnerable all over the globe, and we know the truth will always prevail. I am a faithful member in good standing in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I believe in Jesus Christ, the Holy Scriptures, and I believe in our faith with my whole heart. That will never change. It has been alleged that an LDS church spokesperson issued a statement about me through a tabloid that is often hostile to people of faith. My church has not publicly verified the statement's authenticity. We are also highly suspicious about the timing of such a statement, given its close proximity to Mitt Romney's announcement that he is retiring, my own public comments about my prayers about future plans, and the fact that the LDS Church does not engage in political activity. In any event, nothing will change my core beliefs. If someone within the church did release this statement, I am absolutely confident that the right people will step in and ensure that the proper due process is followed as the rules of our church dictate. September 28th, 2023. An attorney speaking on behalf of a group of women responded after Ballard disputed the claims. Attorney Suzanne Rasmussen said the women had been subjected to sexual harassment, spiritual manipulation, grooming, and sexual misconduct by Ballard while working at Our. On October 6th, Glenn Beck stated he felt completely duped after hearing the allegations. On October 9th, 5 women filed an anonymous lawsuit against Tim Ballard, the Our organization, and affiliated organizations, calling Ballard a sexual predator. On October 10th, a second lawsuit is filed by a married couple. This lawsuit claimed Ballard's manipulation and grooming led to the breakup and damage of at least 2 marriages, and that the Our organization failed to warn the woman of the true allegations against Ballard. In the lawsuit, one plaintiff claimed that Ballard allegedly kissed her neck, lifted her shirt, and taught her how to have fake sex as part of the training to work in an operation. This lawsuit was later amended to include Catherine Ballard as a conspirator in the case. Our has filed a counterclaim against this couple, claiming that Celeste and Michael Boyers committed defamation and breach of contract in publishing their lawsuit. So much stuff.
Breach of contract? To me, that's like, yeah, it happened, but you weren't supposed to talk about it.
October 11th, Tim Ballard and his wife Catherine released a joint statement. In it, Tim stated that he was permanently retired from undercover operations. It also stated that of the 5 women who anonymously came forward, only 2 went on actual operations. We start with recognition of the post-trauma inflicted on all those who went in harm's way and know that there are years of healing needed ahead. End quote. November 2nd, 2023. The initial complaint filed by 5 women was amended to include new allegations claiming Tim Ballard had a closer relationship with Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes and the LDS Church than was previously stated, and that they worked to bury the complaints, which both parties deny. November 16th, 2023. A report filed with the Linden Police Department listed Ballard as the suspect in a sexual assault case. This marked the first time Tim Ballard has been under investigation in a criminal manner in regards to sexual assault claims. As of this recording, there are now pending lawsuits against various parties, including Our, Tim Ballard and Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes. On December 6, 2023, in a press conference, Sean Reyes said he believed the women's abuse allegations against Tim Ballard, and he apologized that his friendship with Ballard made them feel powerless to come forward. He announced he would not seek re-election, but focus the rest of his term on helping them. It should be noted, lawsuits and accusations are not proof of guilt or innocence. This is what will be determined in the future. This is simply a statement on the current status of Tim Ballard and the Our organization. I'm tired. I'm taking a nap. You guys talk.
You know, you're right, Aaron. I think this guy is not as bad as everyone paints him out to be. I think I came in way off base.
I don't think I ever said that. I don't think I ever said that. I said they're allegations, though. You can't just say it's true based on allegations. And unfortunately, I think we live in a world where so often people do that. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't credence to it. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying I don't know. And I don't think it's fair that the allegations, however horrible a person he may or may not be, that shouldn't take away from the very serious situation that the movie is presenting. That is child trafficking, which is a very, very timely, accurate, and realistic topic. I am taking no depth away from the allegations and how wrong they may be as well. I'm talking about child trafficking should always be taken seriously, and I don't think it is in this country.
Mic drop. I will say that there is so much suspicion for me around A, how Tim responded, B, the comments from Attorney General Sean Reyes, also a little sus. Like, obviously, I'm not...
What is it with your generation? Why can't you just finish a word?
Suspicious?
Yes.
It's actually not even my generation. It's the generation that I...
Why are you subscribing
that
to
I'm
it?
surrounded
like,
by all the
words
time.
are there. Use them. They're
right.
They're fun. They're
Let's
important.
shorten them. Time is everything. Time is money. I don't
Pretty
know.
soon,
Anyway.
pretty soon, entire conversation is going to be like, Legs, what's up?
We're going to just take all the vowels out.
Everything's going to be a text.
But I don't know. Like, I know obviously we are allowed and permitted to have our own opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely of the opinion that, and this is going to sound super controversial probably, I think that a lot of government activities and, you know, investigations and trying to take down, you know, organized crime in whatever capacity is, I think they probably often bypass what is acceptable and or legal because they see the end mission as the primary target. And it's like one of those, and I can't remember which philosopher had this theory, but essentially like the ends justify the means. And that's kind of where I feel this is at. This is at, hey, we did some, they, whatever, allegedly, did some not good things, some bad things, in order to get to the end resolution of saving these kids. And people were probably covering it up and fine with it because the ends justified the means in their mind until people brought it to the attention of the public. And you can't be like, well, guys, you know, we were just trying to save these 120 children. So, of course, he sexually assaulted these women and had them, you know, coerce them into doing these activities, quote unquote, as part of the mission. So, like, I can see that being the justification.
Well, there's nothing that justifies that if that's the truth.
No, it
Nothing.
doesn't. But I can see that being like the mentality, especially from like a government supported overseas initiative. Like, I hear about those things.
I could also see a government covering up for shady things happening behind the scenes, unfortunately.
Yeah, that too. It could go. It literally could be either way. It could be like, oh, well, we had good intentions. Well, that doesn't matter, sir. And it could also be, well, you know.
And I think it was Machiavelli, by the way.
That
said the ends be justify the means.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for Googling.
No, that's
I just know.
Just kidding.
That's really where the term comes from. That's why when they say this very Machiavellian of you, that's what they mean.
Didn't they have him in Boondock Saints? They mentioned him. They referenced him.
Coming back to at the beginning, I think we were talking about does this hurt the operation itself? Or can we speak positively about one end of it, but negatively about the other end of it? Like, it saved children. Children's lives were saved from trafficking. That doesn't make it okay, anything that happened to those women.
Right.
But it also does mean, in fact, we aren't doing enough to end trafficking in the world.
I mean, the obvious answer to that is yes, but I guess where are you stemming that comment from?
I just feel like that was the message that the movie, if there was a message from the movie, that was the message. It's that children are being trafficked. We are not doing enough to combat that. We are, in fact, doing more to let it happen in many respects. And also, when it comes to a government agency protecting children, where should those lines be in terms of, search warrants and things like that? Like, there's so many legal requirements and citizens' rights should be protected. Man, I don't know if I feel differently when it comes to children, though.
No, it's pretty tough when children are involved. A government agency is supposed to be taking care of things within that government, so within the United States in this case. It makes sense for them to try to draw lines, because as soon as they start policing other countries and other governments for what they are doing or aren't doing, it starts drawing ire, for one, but for two, it starts creating these foggy lines as to where power begins and ends for governments. And it's, though we would like other countries to be able to deliver to other countries this information and say, hey, this is what's going on here. Here's the real facts. Do something. They don't always have the resources and the ability to do that.
And John, we are at the end of all my book report that I had to go through. So now the floor is yours. You wanted this pulpit for Tim Ballard. So go. Allegedly.
I mean, everything that I had was a lot of what was said there, but there's also a couple of minor facts, which was a couple of times in which he went to Gertie's family's home with the psychic to say, okay, we found where Gertie is, and yet they're still looking for him. To do that to a family without any sort of proof or ability, and with the word of a psychic, is pretty harmful in itself. There's a victim that they like to use as a... There's a victim that they like to use on our website that they like to prop up for reasons as to why. And Tim has actually spoken to this. She is the reason why, as to why the wall, the Mexican-American wall, needs to be built. One, he has changed the story of her capture several different times, which is, first she was a teenager, then she's 11 years old, and then she's something else. When the true story is that she was taken when she was 14 years old from her family. And she wasn't taken. What happened was that she fell in love with a boy, and his family moved to New York. She went with them, and because that was the only way that she can be with that boy. And then she spent 3 years subjugated to abuses and being trafficked and being used as a way for that family to make money. And then when she was 17, she bravely found her way out of that family. But Tim Ballard has used that as, this is what our has done. We did this, and they've had it up on the website and whatnot, and he's conflated and co-opt somebody else's own story of bravery. And I don't think anyone who does that is necessarily a good person.
But you said a lot of this was done before. I can't find a whole lot documented negatively about him until the summer when this movie came out. And then, of course, everything blows up because people are focusing more on it. There's news reports, the media's all over it. It's this huge right-wing movie hit, which really it's just a movie hit.
It's just a movie hit.
Yeah, but that's when Ballard's situation started amping up and the claims started coming out. I didn't really see anything that predated that. Or not much, anyway.
The Gertie thing predates that, and the story about Liliana predates that.
Yeah, but neither one of those are allegations of impropriety, of sexual misconduct, or anything like that.
I'm just talking about as far as character is concerned, and then the allegations of sexual impropriety that come in later really start to hammer home this is not a good person.
At the end of the day, it's coincidental timing. You do have to take that into consideration. That it occurred, that the news was released around the time of the movie. That doesn't negate any of the statements, and I'm not saying it does. I'm just saying I can see where the other side of this, who want to defend this man who did do good things for children, would be on the side of, okay, why are we bringing this up now? And a lot of times it's from when victims, that person comes to the limelight, they're being posed as a hero and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, well, let me get the truth out there then. Like, if we're going to go down this route, let's be real about everything that happened. And, knowing that it wasn't depicted in what they encountered. But the thing that I find that I come back to about all of this is the government doesn't do shit. Like, when we talk about Aaron, going way back to Aaron's point where he's like, we need to do more, is the takeaway message from this. One, why did it take a separate organization to get involved to do this type of work? Two, as someone who's worked through the court system to defend adolescent children who are victims of neglect and abuse, it is insane the amount of evidence you have to present and the time it takes to get that child safely removed from their parents. And a lot of times, they still are required to be interacting with somebody who neglected and or abused them. So do I think that I have confidence in our government to do the right thing and protect children? Even from the standpoint of when it's brought into the court system, absolutely not. It is abhorrent how much children are not taken care of in the United States of America. No less, hidden behind walls, being, probably bribed with money and different favors and different things like that from these, organized trafficker groups. Like, I promised you, I would bet my life on it that we have government officials that are involved in this. Like, there's just no way around it. And that, to me, is the even sadder part is, A, I know we can't trust our government to protect these kids. B, it's sad that citizens do have to take the initiative to do more and be part of that effort or allegiance to actually make things happen. And C, even when the government is involved, it's never sufficient. It's never enough to protect them. And I think you asked the question earlier, Aaron, about, should our laws and warrants and like all of that be consistent for minors as it is for adults? Nah, I'm sorry, but no. If a child's life is potentially at risk, do whatever you got to do to validate, find the truth, and get them safe. To me, that's as simple as it should be. We shouldn't have to go through the amount of hoops that we have to go through to even investigate if there's an issue. And
should be noted, you were a child advocate. So you're speaking from experience. Mm-hmm. And also, if you think Amanda is QAnon, she's so far left, like if she was on the on-ramp to the highway, she would fall off. So that's just nonsense.
I like to think that I am policy liberal, fiscally conservative. We just have to be strategic and intentional about where our money goes. That's all. But otherwise, yeah, I would say I'm probably pretty liberal.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand. Just going through family courts and whatnot. It's amazing to me how little we do in certain circumstances, and it's sad that there is this other controversy going on, because otherwise, I think it's an important movie in many respects. And I don't think it's hammering a message. I just think the topic is important.
Definitely.
One last thing I will say is that, yes, we are well aware that there was a crowdfunder investor that was arrested at one point, but those charges were dropped. And there was another producer that was investigated, and no charges ever came of that. Therefore, it doesn't really pertain to the Sound of Freedom as a whole. If you want more information on those cases, Google will be your friend.
I wish I could remember what the documentary was that we saw at a festival some years ago around trafficking. But man, that really opened my eyes. Like, if you get a chance to watch the documentaries around child trafficking and human trafficking,
there's a lot of them too.
There are. It is wow. And the number one destination within the United States is the Texas Triangle of Houston, San Antonio, and DFW. A lot of people think that it's like more like LA or something like that. It's actually that area, and Houston in particular. But of course, like a lot of the big cities are statistically have the larger ratio percentage of child trafficking. And even in the smaller cities, like we found out for the Beloit International Film Festival, they had a movie on human trafficking. And they actually had somebody come out and talk about that area in particular in Beloit, Wisconsin, like this really small town, and how even in that area, there was a significant, and I hate to use the word hub, but like, I don't know what else to call it, but centralized where it was prominent even in those small areas. So it's not just the big cities that are trafficking humans and children. It is everywhere, man. It is everywhere.
Well, I will end this podcast by saying Sound of Freedom is a good film. It's engaging. It's a thriller. It's really not pounding a message home except for trafficking children is bad. And I think anyone that says that that is a bad message, I don't know if I need to know you. That's all.
That's fair.
Anything from you guys as we close out from Sound of Freedom?
No.
I wish I had like some action messages for you. Watch out for children. Keep an eye on. I don't know what the right messaging is, but like, I guess a call of action would be really cool right here.
Well, what you can do, and this is important to go along with your call to action, Amanda, is if you do think you know of a trafficking incident, you can contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888. That's 1-888-373-7888. How's that?
That's good.
Perfect. If something doesn't seem right, speak out.
Absolutely. Or just call 911 if you have to.
That too.
Yeah,
that too.
Just call 911. Do what you got to do. Okay, that's going to do it. If you ever want to suggest a film that's inspired by a true story, you can send it by email, inspired@thehollywoodoutsiders.com. That's inspired@thehollywoodoutsiders.com, or reach out to us anywhere on social media. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share the show on your social media outlets and give us a review in your favorite podcast app. Remember, you are the best source of promotion, so tell your true crime maniac friends about it. Thanks for listening to Inspired by a True Story. Now let's keep those artists honest.